Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us once again as we tackle this very challenging topic. I'm Teresa Jacob Ellis. I work at HITS Consulting Group with Henry Dennis, and he is going to share with you some insights on the second round of SBA funding. So without any further ado, I will introduce Henry, but just before we get started, some housekeeping. I have muted everyone's mic just so that we can hear the presentation clearly. If you do have questions, I'll ask that you type them into the chat and we'll get to all of your questions at the end of the presentation. So now, without any further delays, let me turn the floor over to Henry, and let me also unmute you, Henry, so you can begin your presentation.
Thank you, Teresa, and good evening, everyone, and thank you once more for joining in. We will try to keep it as brief and to the point as possible, as there is a lot of information to share. We met on Monday, and I had shared with you some insight then, and on Tuesday, the world basically changed. So we learned that all the big banks are being sued right now for prioritizing loan based on size, not on the first come, first served basis. And we further learned that Congress is ready to appropriate the massive amount of money to the same PPP program, and we have concerns. We did not get a whole lot of our customers funding the first time with the information provided. What makes us think that the next time around it will be any different? As they say, the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing and expecting different outcome. So with that, we will go through the presentation, and the guiding principles are very simple. We're not providing financial advice, accounting advice, or any form of legal regulated advice whatsoever. We're sharing our experience based on what we've seen. So let's move forward. Yesterday, the Senate passed a $484 billion deal to replenish the SBA loan, of which $320 billion is going to go into the PPP program, and another $60 billion is going to go towards small business loan in grants. That's all good news. And as I said before, what we are concerned about is what will be the behavior of the banks, especially the bigger banks, in the next round of funding. So that's what we'll be tackling tonight. Next slide, please. So if you didn't get your loan on the first time, in the first round, what should you do to protect yourself this time around? We will go through a few strategies. And now I want to share HITS Consulting Group timeline and experience with a big bank, Bank of America. We've used them for a long time, and that's our timeline, so you understand why we are putting this together and what we are sharing with you. It's basically our experience. Whether somebody else's experience is similar, we do not know, but I'll share our experience with you. Our job as consultants, as you know, is to understand complex programs, break them down in simple terms, and then come and offer our experience as services to the customer base yourself. So on March 30th, we received communication from Bank of America listing all documentations that we would need for the application of the PPP. So as you know, April the 3rd, 1 p.m., PPP opens. Within an hour, they had gotten 4,000 applications. On April 5th, we submitted our application, received acknowledgement of submission. That's 2 days later. April 8th, we received confirmation that all documentations are accepted. That's the day that Bank of America opened up their portal to receive documentations. They were uploaded to that portal on the 8th. April 11th, we received a message that some documentations were missing. We needed to resubmit. And that's because at first we thought that 1099 contractors would be included as per the previous communication. So April 13th, message received that no documentations are available. We put up all the documentations that we then understood were required, 940, 941, and the other 2 pieces of documentation which we covered at the last webinar. And by then, 2 days later, April 15th, the first funding round was completely depleted. And by April 16th, everything was closed. And finally, on April 21st, we received notification that our application was under review by Bank of America. And April 22nd, today, we received notification that the application is complete and there's nothing further to do. So practically speaking, we read it as sit and wait and hope that during the second round of funding, your application would get through. The issue that we are having with this, we did everything actually by the book based on the availability of website becoming available, documentations that were asked of us, and submissions done and waiting. We never heard absolutely nothing in regards to the actual status until the 21st, yesterday. Today's the 22nd. One day later, they told us that, oh, the review is completed and your application is complete. What does that mean? Well, I sincerely cannot say that. I'm going to sit on my laurels and just wait for Bank of America. If during the next round of the priority doesn't change, it means that we might not see any money, any help whatsoever. Next, please. So if you didn't get funding the first time around, what should you do differently this time? Understand the basic guiding principle here. For example, Chase Manhattan Bank is being sued because their average loan size is above $500,000. And all the other big banks are facing the same type of lawsuits. We are a small company. There is zero way that we could ever even think that our average loan size would be $500,000. Based on where we stand under $100,000, and if indeed the allegations are true, they would never have gotten to us. Absolutely not. So what do we want to do as far as a strategy to protect our company going forward? Next, please. So these are the initial assumptions, and that's what we've been talking about on previous webinars. We thought that banks would process loans in the order in which the applications were received, first come, first serve, and the SBA would make their determination regarding loan funding. At least that's what was being discussed on all the webinars that I attended with the Small Business Development Corporation out of Queens College. What was the reality, and that was confirmed again by the same people at SBDC. Lenders are paid a percentage of the loan amount, which could incentivize banks to prioritize larger loans over smaller loans. And the other part is that banks, not the SBA, are performing all verifications and qualifying the loans. The only thing that SBA does is funding the loan that the banks have actually approved. So it seems now that all the power is literally sitting with the bank, not the SBA. So with that, what have we decided to do as a company? Next, please. So we have looked at our options. Since one cannot depend on our bank, our lender, to act in our best interest necessarily, applying a second time to a different source may be appropriate. There are banks that are specialized in small business loans, smaller size loans, and that have been doing this for a long time. So therefore, our strategy seems to be looking at those banks that have been lending, SBA lenders that have been lending to businesses like ours, smaller size loans. A lot of them will be listed on our website following this webinar within 30 minutes, so you can go there and get the actual list. Alternative lenders are now very much being looked at. You may look at existing business partners too that have been approved by the SBA, such as Paychecks, Intuit, QuickBooks, right? Even PayPal if you use them, and others. These are all going to be listed on our website as options. If your bank cannot tell you exactly where you stand and give you some guarantees, I strongly suggest that you take the necessary precautions to make sure that your interests are protected. And another option is to consider using an expediter. What is an expediter? Literally, it's a broker. So a lot of the CPA firms have partnered with lenders and they submit your application for a fee. So that is another possibility as well if you want to go down that road. So they prepare everything for you and they work with the lender, and practically speaking, the lender gives them some guarantees that the loans will be processed in a timely manner. So why is that important? Based on the previous slide, where we mentioned that the banks basically make all the decisions. They will make the decision to put your application through to the SBA. Everybody has limits, everybody has limited resources. So we want to make sure that your bank, when you apply, my bank, when I apply, they give some priority to my loan. Next, please. At this point, we will open the floor for questions and answers. You have my contact information if you need to reach me. Right after this presentation, this video will be online within 30 minutes, and the list of banks that we have sifted through will be on there. Again, the disclaimer is that you should do your research, make sure that you're comfortable with the lender, make sure that you're comfortable with their history and the loan sizes that they have been working with, so that when you make your application, you have some level of confidence that your loan is going to be given priority, is going to push through, is going to be put through the SBA system. With that, I thank you very much for attending. We all thank you. We absolutely will continue to provide the latest information as it comes through. And at this point, I'll take questions.
Please unmute yourself if you do have a question.
So I guess the question that I have is, I'm working with Bank of America, and they've sent me several notices that they've received my application, but that some of the documents are missing. Now, they work with Interlink's system. All my stuff is on Interlink's. I've gone over it several times. I actually got through to Bank of America to speak to someone this morning at 7:10 this morning. And he told me that because there's a glitch in the system, that message is being sent out to people, but they have the application, it's being processed. So I asked him, what do I need to do now? He said, there's nothing that you can do now, but wait. So, and for a moment, I felt a sense of relief, but as the day grew on, I feel a little bit more uncomfortable. Now I really feel uncomfortable after hearing what you had to say. So what are you saying now, that we should go elsewhere?
I'm not saying what you should do, but I'm telling you what I did. What I did is looking at all my options, realizing that my loan size is so small that I cannot count on my own bank that I've been dealing with forever, thinking that they would have put my loan through based on a first come, first serve basis, but they didn't do that. They didn't serve me. They served the bigger loans because apparently it's in their best interest to serve the bigger size loans than it was to serve my smaller size loan, although I was right there on the fence at the door with my application. So what I'm providing are options that we looked at. It's entirely up to you what decision you make.
Henry, is there a
So
downside to submitting an application? I'm sorry for jumping in. Is there a downside in your view to submitting a second application to a secondary lender?
Excellent question. So last, I believe 2 seminars ago, someone asked that question. And the answer at that time was you creating what is called a risk condition. A risk condition basically means that 2 lenders are working on your application at the same time. And when it comes to finalizing the funding, which means that they ask the SBA to fund your loan, one of them and only one of them can do that. So that first lender that gets to the SBA and submits your information, because your tax ID number is unique and only one loan can go by tax ID number, then that first lender will get the business. And the other lender, when it gets there, it will be, sorry, Charlie, you cannot do that. So that the downside is not necessarily a downside for hits, right? When we make a decision to go with an alternative lender, the downside would be for a particular vendor. I cannot cancel my Bank of America application. I've inquired about that and I still don't know how to do that. If I know how to do that, I would have done that. But the downside is one of the vendors will not be able to put the application through the SBA and get their finder's fee.
You have up there Paychecks. Is Paychecks considered a lender?
Yes, they are. And so into it QuickBooks. So probably most of us have some sort of a relationship with them for payroll services because they are the 2 biggest out there.
So how would you go about getting an application through Paychecks? You call them directly?
I'll put it on my website right after the meeting. Right after we meet, Within half an hour, you can go to the website. You'll have the entire list, including this recording. It will be on the website. There is a link for you to contact them there as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Henry, the
Uh-huh.
problem is if you reapply now to a new lender, look at your Bank of America. It took like 18 days for your application to be completed. If we start from zero, and let's say I send my application tomorrow, it's gonna take 2 weeks. By the time it's processed, the application completely, the money's gonna run out.
Excellent question, Dr. Apon.
Mm.
Based on what I've read, everyone is afraid that this time around, the money will get depleted even faster. If the first time the money ran out that fast and most banks didn't have their systems ready, let alone now that everybody has been in that race, what do you think is going to happen? I do believe, it's my opinion, I do believe that the money will get depleted faster. However, and that's where you have to be very careful, you have to find a lender who cares about smaller size loans and they have the capacity to work through them. And that can be proven by their history. So that's the key message that I got. That's the takeaway for me when I did the research. Find a lender that deals with small businesses that will care about a small size loan. And why would they do that? Because they want to establish a relationship with you as a small business. So that's their interest. That's what they want from you. Because now we know that there are alternatives and they know that this is the opportunity for them to capture new clients as well. I've been with Bank of America since we started HITS in 2009. So right, I thought that dealing with my bank was the right thing to do. The SBA, all the seminars, that's what they advise us to do. They have all your information, it's easy. They have all your information, it's easy. But that's what I did. But as I said before, the definition, classic definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different outcome. I cannot wait and take that chance. Right? All of our clients are hurting, we are hurting. So if there is an opportunity to do something different and hope for a different outcome, that's what we are going to do. Dr. Naya, please.
So Henry,
Yes.
your application took that many days to complete. What documents were they looking for? Weren't there documents already on your original application? There aren't that many documents that's needed.
The original application was submitted and what Bank of America was not ready to receive any documents until days later, I believe on the 11th. So when Intralink became available, they sent me that email. First of all, it was very suspicious because I've never heard of them before. And when I went to the website, it was Bank of America branded. So I had to basically do some research and go to Bank of America and finding out that, yes, they are legit. So I uploaded the documentation based on what I knew before through Bank of America. And the information was not complete nor accurate. So then that took some time. And then when they told me exactly what they needed, because I have some 1099 contractors and I had included them in the first submission. So I should not have done that, clearly. So when I submitted only the information for all the employees, then it still took some time to get through the rest of the application process. And as you said, yes, you're absolutely right. It's not that many. It's only 4 pieces of document. They have all my other information already. So what was it that's so difficult for them to get through? And in reality, from that point forward, when my application got reviewed yesterday and completed today, technically speaking, it took 1 day to do that. But they never looked at it, in my opinion, until yesterday. At least according to the communication that I have had coming my way, they never looked at my information until yesterday. Dr. Nael, please.
Yes, hi. Henry, I have a couple of questions or clarification. Would Paycheck be interested in giving me a loan more than Capital One that I've been with for 20 years and I'm with Paychecks for good 13, 14 years as well. I mean, how would I know? Would they give me a priority or, and the second question is, I understand that the PPP, 75% of that has to go to the, towards the payroll. And if I have half my employees or all my employees applied for unemployment already, and I'm not planning to open till maybe mid-May, reopen, how am I gonna qualify for the forgiveness?
So let's break this down, right? Because there are two questions in one. So I'll answer both questions, but I'll separate them for you and the benefit of the audience. So the first one is paychecks. They are a newly qualified vendor. And that would mean to me, again, it's my opinion, if you are a newly qualified vendor, you did not have the pipeline of all the other vendors that have been in the program since the beginning. So a newly qualified vendor has some level of appeal, right? Because their pipeline isn't as deep as vendors that have been in it from the beginning. And they have a relationship with you already. So they have some of your information. So what I would do if I were you, I would get on the phone with them and have a sense of where in the priority line that you would find yourself, right? A lot of people told me that we dealt with our banker, our relationship banker. They told us everything was great and wonderful, and yet this is what happened. Your relationship banker, in my opinion, has absolutely no leverage when it comes to this type of a loan, right? They tell us you cannot even go to the bank, you cannot talk to anyone. Your relationship banker, the job of the relationship banker, my relationship banker, his job is to make me feel comfortable and know that I'm being taken care of, right? But I wasn't. At the end of the day, what I looked for, I didn't have it. So that's first part of your question. So again, you would do your research and you would make your decision based on what you find. The second part of your question is your employees. You close, they all file for unemployment. If you have the PPP loan approval, what do you do then? You have to rehire your employees. And you have until June 30th to do so. So you have to rehire your employees. And that's what would qualify you for the forgiveness.
And I have to rehire the same people? What if somebody decided?
The answer is yes. You have to make them an offer to come back. Whether they come back or not is
unemployment will give them a lot more.
Yes. So you have to make them an offer. Whether they come back or not, you cannot control that. So you have to do that. And what we are going to do now, we're entering the legal round. That's next week, right? We will talk about post-COVID-19 when people are starting to reopen and so forth and so on. And we will have a lawyer, probably some of you met him already, Roy, and he will be talking about the legal aspect of rehiring, making offers and so forth and so on, right? So now, again, I'm not offering legal advice. I'm not qualified and licensed to do so. But understand one thing, this is simple logic. If your employee goes to unemployment and you are given the PPP to keep that person employed and keep the level of unemployment low, and you make an offer to that person and that person refuses to come to work, that person is in violation of unemployment law. Unemployment law requires them to take whatever is available. Unemployment law requires them to check in every single Sunday and say that I don't have any offer, I don't have employment, right? That's at least my understanding of how it works, right? Again, I'm not providing legal advice. I'm just doing the logical walkthrough here. So if your employee doesn't want to come back, should you be punished for that? Logically speaking, the answer is no. I don't think that it should be. So I cannot do legal analysis clearly. I can only do the logical analysis, which is what I've just done. What I suggest is that you make yourself available when you start to do the post-COVID-19 and we bring Roy, on, and then you can ask him for the legal analysis and he will do that for you. We knew that was going to come and we've been working on it. We will get that out as soon as we possibly can, but it's most likely going to be next week as some practices started to open. The government is starting to give some signs that the economy reopening and so forth. So people have to be planning. So we know that. So we will get that out to the group. And I suggest that you save that question for that time.
Henry, the employees, the PPP is only for full-time employees, right?
I don't understand the question that way upon.
Is that the employees, you know, there's a box, they said how many employees you have. Let's say you have to rehire them by June 30th. Does it apply only to full-time employees or part-time?
I don't think so. I think that employees are employees, period, whether part-time or full-time, right? Because when you give your payroll report, whether you're using the 940 or using the W3, right? It doesn't really matter, right? The payroll report is your payroll report. It contains both part-time and full-time. But it's applicable to employees, not contractors, not independent contractors.
Not the 1099.
Not the 1099, that is correct. The W-2s only, not the 1099. So when you did your application, you should have excluded the 1099.
Right. Okay, all right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Any other questions for Henry or comments or? Okay.
Well, thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate you taking the time. The video will be available on our website within 30 minutes. And we will have the list of vendors that we have sifted through. We will post that, and it will be your decision, obviously, to do your research. And if you want to go with an alternate vendor, that will be your decision and your choice as well. But we're making the information available to you. We will follow up as we start to think of post-COVID-19, reopening our practices, what are the legal implications and so forth. So we will have that webinar in the next week or so as practices are starting to open and we have some signs of the economy, opening up again. Thank you so much. You have a great evening, and we will be seeing you on the next webinar. Thank you. Thank you, Sarisa, for hosting as well. Appreciate it.
Thank you.